This video begins Unit 5 on to animals. Essentially what we're going to do is we're going to walk through the major groups of animals. But in this first lecture we're going to just talk about characteristics that all animals share and some of the essential functions that all animals have. So, characteristics of all animals. All animals are multicellular, eukaryotic, heterotrophic, and their cells lack cell walls. Also, most animals contain tissues, and a tissue is nothing more than a group of similar cells that have a specific function to carry out, like muscle tissues carry out the function of movement, or nerve tissues carry out the function of sending impulses throughout the body for communication. And so most animals have some sort of tissue structure, only the simplest do not. The next is this concept of vertebrates versus invertebrates. 95% of animals are invertebrates, meaning that they lack a backbone. I will use many terms, and you'll see many terms to describe backbone. Sometimes you'll see, spine, or vertebrae, or vertebral column. Point is, all of these things are basically the same idea. We will use them interchangeably, so I don't expect you to stick with one of those ideas. I can't spell. All right, so 95% of animals are invertebrates. And so the other 5% of those are vertebrates. And these are animals like fish and amphibians, reptiles, humans, whereas the invertebrates are things like ants, like you see in this picture, giant squid, sponges, 95% of animals, so you can name a lot. Now, another important concept with animals is this concept of feedback inhibition. And animals maintain homeostasis through this, through using feedback inhibition. Now, what is homeostasis? This is just the establishment of certain norms in the body. For instance, humans have an internal temperature of 98.6. We use feedback inhibition in order to maintain that 98.6. We need a certain amount of water in our bodies. We need a certain amount of pH. We need all these different things to be at normal, and homeostasis is the maintaining of those norms. Now, this dog is demonstrating an example of feedback inhibition in that in the summertime, dogs get hot. And so what is he doing in order to cool himself down? He's sticking his tongue out and panting. Now, how does that demonstrate feedback inhibition? Well, feedback inhibition is when the product of a process limits that process. So let's use this dog as an example. The product of a process limits that process. Well, the dog is heating up. And so in order to limit that heating up, he sticks his mouth, or he opens his mouth, sticks his tongue out, and cools himself down. So the product that's sticking out of the tongue limits the process of heating up. When you're cold, you walk outside, you're shivering. The shivering warms you back up in order to turn the shivering mechanism off. When excess heat causes you to sweat, which is your body's mechanism to reduce your internal body temperature. And so all of these different mechanisms work on this concept of feedback inhibition. And we're going to talk about these essential functions. There are 7 of them that all animals demonstrate. The first of those is feeding. And feeding is nothing more than the act of ingesting food from another organism. All animals feed on other organisms. That means they're heterotrophic. And animals feed on lots of different things in order to obtain energy. Here's an example. This mother bird is feeding the babies. They are eating an insect in order to get food. There are literally millions of examples of feeding in animal kingdom. So we're not going to list any particular ones. You can come up with them. You come up with them every day when you eat food. That is an example of you feeding. Now, respiration, everyone's favorite picture, cellular respiration. Respiration in this case is the act of taking in oxygen and releasing CO2 to make ATP. And so we take in oxygen, we release CO2 so that we can have energy. All animals do this. Some animals do this through their lungs, like us, like dogs. Some animals do this through gills, like fish. Some animals do this through their skin, like amphibians. And so there's lots of different ways that respiration occurs. Some animals have more than one way of doing this. So, but at the end of the day, respiration is getting oxygen, getting rid of CO2 to make ATP. Circulation. So circulation is the process of moving materials throughout the body. Some animals have open circulatory systems, um, which you can see that on the left there. The grasshopper has an open circulatory system, still has a heart, but all of its blood is just kind of out in the body. It's not contained in vessels. These depend on diffusion in order to get materials in and out, versus a closed system like this earthworm here, or like a cat, or like us. We have closed systems in that the blood is tied up in the heart and in the blood vessels. It's still the same function to move materials throughout the body, materials like food and oxygen and carbon dioxide and hormones and all sorts of different things that need to be circulated throughout the body. Excretion. This is the elimination of waste products like ammonia. All animals make ammonia because all animals eat protein of some kind. And so protein is the breakdown of protein causes the production of ammonia, and some animals release it directly through diffusion or through other places. Some animals convert it before they release it. We have kidneys that do that job, and the kidneys convert it into something before we release it as urine. Um, Different sorts of animals are going to do this differently, but all animals need to get rid of waste. Response. This is receiving and responding to stimuli in the environment. Some organisms have very simple reception cells, and some organisms have very complex nervous systems with sensory integration and the whole lot. Jellyfish have sensory cells that tell them if the light's on or not and tell them which way's up. Gravity and light, that's about it. They can sense those things. Whereas we, for instance, there's a picture of this cars coming towards these two people. Um, there's a number of things that can be going on in the brain of a person when a car is coming at them. Most assuredly, it's a car's coming, get out of the way, but you're also thinking, what kind of car is that? Whose car is that? Is it coming really fast? Do I have enough time to get out of the way? What do I need to do in order to get out of the way? And so there's all these different kinds of responses that are going on based on the stimulus that we are receiving. I should mention, I said a big word there, stimulus. Stimulus is just information received from the environment. We receive that stimulus through our five senses. Other organisms that don't have five senses, they have maybe one or two, but they're still receiving information from the outside world. Movement. Uh, Most animals are modal, and modal, motal, is just literally means to be able to move. Uh, Animals, even the ones that are not modal, move at some point in their life usually. Motility just involves some sort of muscular tissue, some sort of propulsion system. Uh, this cheetah here has a very complex movement in that its entire body is designed to be able to move it very fast from its paws, which are flat and hard, its tail, which is really puffy and acts like a rudder, its head is really small, its hind legs are extremely muscular, its back is very flexible. These things run at 75 miles an hour, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds or less. So very specialized in their ability to move. Other organisms move differently. And then lastly, reproduction. Most animals reproduce sexually by combining haploid gametes, sperm and egg. Male produces the sperm, female produces the egg. Sexual reproduction adds to a population's diversity. This is very good for populations. It allows them to adapt, and the strongest survive, and we have evolution. Whereas some invertebrates are able to reproduce asexually, which allows them to reproduce very quickly. They may have a shorter lifespan. They need to reproduce quickly, get food quickly, and so they reproduce asexually in order to allow that to happen. We will see as animal complexity grows, we'll see that asexual reproduction go away, and sexual reproduction being the main order of business. So those are the 7 essential functions. Speaking of animal evolution, there are certain key elements that have contributed to animals evolving and getting more and more complex. First of those is cell specialization. As animals evolve, their need for specialized cells becomes greater. Larger animals will have more specialized cells than smaller ones, usually, because they have many different tissue types. We are a large animal. We have nervous tissue and connective tissue and epithelial tissue and all sorts of different kinds of tissues, muscle tissues, whereas a jellyfish doesn't. It doesn't have all these specialized cells because it's not a very specialized organism. Whereas we are extremely specialized, and so there's a big difference. And whereas you have more cell specialization, you also have the development of organs and organ systems, and again, very complex animals. Body symmetry. This is when one or more lines of symmetry can be drawn through an organism's body plan. Some organisms are asymmetrical, meaning they do not have body symmetry, like sponges, for instance. We will talk about sponges very briefly at the beginning of this unit. Some organisms have radial symmetry, which you see here, and other organisms have bilateral symmetry. Now, the difference here is radial symmetry, there's an infinite number of lines of symmetry, meaning that because the animal's basically tube-shaped, you can think of a circle, you can draw multiple lines of symmetry through that. Whereas a bilateral animal, like this crab here, this is kind of a crabbish thing, all right, it has one line of symmetry down the middle. Now, evolution has favored bilateral symmetry over radial symmetry. Some of the reasons for this may be body segmentation. As you can see, this worm here doesn't have any body segments, even though you can't see its whole body. It just doesn't. It's pretty plain. It does have some specialized structures at the head. Um, but the lobster there, or the crayfish, lots of specialized structures, lots of specialized segments. It has a head segment, a thorax, so like a middle section, an abdominal section, and then each section is divided up into smaller sections, as you can see, which leads to things like appendages, which are just things that are attached to these body segments, like our arms and legs. For other animals, it could be wings, like this crayfish has claws. Like pincers. There's lots of different kinds of appendages that can come from this. And you also have specialized anterior, which means head, and posterior ends as well, as opposed to just something plain. So um, bilateral symmetry has been favored more by evolution because it allows for more specialization. Cephalization. This is just the literal addition of a head. This is the concentration of sense organs and nervous tissue at the anterior of an organism, or the head part of the organism, forming a head. This is found in animals with bilateral symmetry. Some of them with radial symmetry, or very rudimentary, like you see here in this earthworm. Rudimentary meaning just very simple brain. Even this flatworm kind of has the beginnings of cephalization, but you see this much more pronounced in the insect, and then as you move on up, amphibians, fish, reptiles, birds. much more degree of cephalization, which leads to more complex thinking, more complex movements, more complexity in general. This eventually leads to like sensory integration, which is the difference between just simply receiving a message like the jellyfish, it's light outside, I know which way's up, and knowing what to do with that message, like there's a car coming, I can get out of the way, that sort of thing. And lastly is body cavity formation. Body cavity is just a big space inside the body. This allows for a place for specialized structures like organs and keeps them safe during movement. I'll go ahead and mention this word. The formal term for the body cavity is the coelom. It's not pronounced coelum or coelum. It's pronounced like coelom. All right. And some organisms do not have a coelom, and other organisms have kind of a quasi-coelom, and then others have a real coelom. And this coelom, or this body cavity, allows organs to be kept safe. Survival rates are going to increase. Organisms are going to be larger, and the organs are able to become even more specialized. Whereas an animal that doesn't have a body cavity can't be really big because it doesn't have any protection for the organism or the organs inside. An organism that has a body cavity keeps those organs safe and is able to move about freely.